Welcome back to those returning to watch another video, and a warm welcome to those joining us for the first time. As our channel is still new, we'd truly appreciate your support by giving a like or even considering subscribing. In this video, we'll discuss why there's increasing pressure on Vladimir Putin for a nuclear strike in Ukraine, and what's truly at stake. Thank you for tuning in. For decades, the world lived under the shadow of the threat of nuclear war. From the 1960s through the early 1980s, such a conflict seemed almost inevitable, with major powers preparing as best they could. Fortunately, the Cold War ended without these dreadful weapons being deployed, proving that despite all the political and ideological discord, common sense ultimately prevailed, saving the world from a nuclear catastrophe. However, in 2022, the specter of a nuclear confrontation resurfaced after Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. In response, the United States and NATO supported the Ukrainian defensive effort by providing them with weapons, ammunition, and financial resources. This support not only stalled the Russian advance but also enabled a counter-offensive. Between September and November 2022, this resulted in the liberation of over 15,000 square kilometers. In June 2023, the Ukrainians launched another counter-offensive. Unlike the first, however, this one is progressing much more slowly and is proving to be far more costly. All the support from the United States, NATO, and other nations, such as Australia, is obviously deeply unsettling to Russia. Had it not been for this extensive support, if Ukraine truly stood alone in the war, Vladimir Putin would likely have achieved all his objectives within a matter of weeks. But now he finds himself deeply mired in a prolonged, intensely fierce, and above all, very expensive conflict. A war that is draining Russia's military resources and will impact Russia's ability to project its military power in other parts of the globe, such as in Syria. Given the current state of the war, it seems it could continue for many more years, during which both Russia and Ukraine will continue to lose hundreds of soldiers daily. Vladimir Putin is watching his stockpile of ammunition, vehicles, aircraft, armored units, and troops dwindle day by day. Unless something unpredictable happens, like the sudden cessation of Western military support for Ukraine, this gradual erosion of the Russian armed forces could persist for many years to come. As one can easily imagine, this deeply troubles Vladimir Putin and the senior members of his administration. Unless Vladimir Putin has an ace up his sleeve, such as a new army of hundreds of thousands of men, an increasing number of Russian officers and politicians believe there's only one way for the war to end quickly, which is the deployment of nuclear weapons. If one nuclear power uses these weapons against another nuclear power, the inevitable result will be immediate nuclear retaliation. However, when a nuclear power uses nuclear weapons against a non-nuclear country, the outcome is far less certain, leaving everything to speculation and uncertainty. It's important to make a critical distinction here. Most NATO member countries do not possess nuclear weapons. However, according to the alliance's statutes, a nuclear attack against one member is deemed a nuclear attack against all members, requiring a like-for-like response. Yet Ukraine is not a member of NATO, nor is it part of any other military alliance with a nuclear-armed member. This means that if the country suffers a nuclear strike, it cannot retaliate in kind, neither directly nor indirectly. Given this, in the event of a Russian nuclear attack against Ukraine, it is highly unlikely that the United States and other nuclear-armed NATO members would execute a direct nuclear retaliation against Russia, as there is no legal foundation to support such an action. Furthermore, such a retaliatory strike would prompt Russia to respond, triggering the much-feared global nuclear war. It's precisely this indecision and this ambiguity regarding what would ensue after a Russian nuclear strike against Ukraine that is fueling an increasingly vocal faction within Vladimir Putin's regime, advocating for nuclear attacks on Ukraine. This faction argues that since the West has already severed all major ties with Russia, deploying nuclear weapons, specifically against Ukrainian military targets, would merely reinforce existing sanctions and penalties. This faction of Putin's government, led by former Russian President and Deputy Chief of Russia's Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, believes the most severe consequence they might face would be conventional attacks from the United States and other allies on Russian positions in Crimea and occupied Ukraine. This would be in addition to the already mentioned strengthening of sanctions and potential cutting of diplomatic relations. For this faction of the Russian government, when weighing the pros and cons, launching low-yield tactical nuclear weapons specifically against military targets, such as bases and weapon and ammunition depots, becomes a rather attractive option. Such an attack would draw global outrage and condemnation, with even China stating its refusal to accept such actions. However, even in the face of this, coupled with the severance of diplomatic ties and strengthened sanctions, Russia might, through these types of attacks, effectively win that war. The Russians, already deeply despised by a segment of the global population, would be transformed into genuine outcasts. Yet Vladimir Putin would manage to conclude, or at least freeze, a conflict that day by day is wearing down his army. Thank you for venturing with us through this journey of understanding. Your presence isn't just a view, it's a testament to the power of global conversation. Before you depart, please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let's foster a dialogue that transcends borders. Don't forget to hit that like button, as it echoes louder than you might think. And if you haven't already, subscribe now, because the horizon of knowledge we're about to explore is vast and beckoning. Until our next epic rendezvous, keep seeking, keep questioning. More content is on its way. Stay tuned.